Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Eminence Cosplays, and today we're going to be building Obanai's Katana. It's so nice to see all of you again, and if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. Let's get started. The materials we're going to be needing are cardstock, cardboard, different types of paints, clear tape, hot glue gun is optional, but it makes it a lot easier. Scissors, a box cutter, also optional, but it does make it a lot easier. So let's get started. So we're going to take our cardstock and make a half fold, and then we're going to do another half fold. I'm going to speed by this, but we're going to do this 4 times. Just remember to try your best, and if you make a little mistake, that is perfectly okay. Alright, as you can see here, I made 4, so that way it matches the length of a normal sword. The reason why we have to fold it a certain way is because Obanai's sword needs to be thicker, so that way we have room for the squiggle that's going to happen. So now you can use duct tape or clear tape, but what you're going to do is tape the 4 pieces together, just so that way everything stays nice and neat for when we paint and cut. Alright, so now we're going to draw the outline of Obanai's katana. So I'm going to put a picture above so that way you guys can pause and draw on your own. I'm just going to speed through this part. So now we're going to cut out the sword. Do keep in mind that some of the top of the sword needs to stay connected, so do leave little gaps in between each squiggle so that way everything stays solid. Alright, now that we've got it all cut out, we're going to set it off to the side. We're going to grab our cardboard. This is about how much you're going to need, just like a leaf of an Amazon box, and we're going to split it down the middle. At the end, we're going to need 5 pieces, 2 long rectangles, 2 more boxy rectangles, and 1 square. We will be left with some axes, and I will mark those as an X. Now we're just going to cut. I use a box cutter and scissors for this. If you just have scissors, that is totally fine. But I really would recommend a box cutter for the hilt. We now have our 5 pieces. 2 of those pieces are going to be part of the hilt. Those 2 pieces are going to be parts that wrap around the sword and handle, and that's going to be the bottom of the handle. Make sure to have a strong grip when you're making the 2 rectangles very close to each other. It's fine if it's not perfect, so that way it's easier to work with. Now we're just going to make a oval shape on the first piece that kind of matches what Obanai's hilt looks like, and I will show you a picture later of what the exact design is going to be on this. What we're going to do here is just cut, copy, and paste basically. So we cut this out, and then we're going to take the piece that we cut out and make it as a outline for the next piece, and then we're going to cut that out too. Now that we've got these pieces, we're going to do more with that later, but we're just going to set them off to the side for right now. Now we're going to make the paper cylinder that goes inside of the sword. It's going to be easier if you put a piece of tape at the edge when you start, and then roll towards the edge that has the tape. Now that we've made one of them, we're going to make 3 more and connect them together. I'm going to speed through this. Feel free to pause. I end up making another one, but it doesn't fit. So we end up making just one. I end up using the extra pieces from that cylinder for the handle. So in case you need more, feel free to add more of these cylinders later. Going back to our sword, we're going to start making the kanji on this sword. So what happens here is that we're going to make a little bit of a marker at the bottom where our piece of cardboard is going to go. Then where we're going to start at the top is right about where the first curve starts. It's important to leave space on the sides so that way we have our white, because the kanji needs to stay in the black purple part of the sword, which I will show later. Here I'm just going to split the space into 4 so that way I know where I'm going to put my kanji. It's important to note that the side with 4 squiggles is needing to be facing us and the point is facing away from us. This took me a while, so feel free to pause and use the picture I put in the corner. This is the picture I used, and feel free to move along whenever you're ready. Here I'm making the lines so that way I roughly know where the black and the white and the dark purple and light purple are going to go. Alright, we're moving on to the painting portion now, so feel free to pause and get the supplies you need. So I got a cover, I got black paint, white paint, light purple, and a darker purple. Then I grabbed a dark yellow, a light yellow, and a green, since I noticed there's a hint of green in the hilt. Then I grabbed some water from my local bathroom sink, and I grabbed some of my paintbrushes, one big one and one little one. Doesn't really matter what you use as long as you have a little one, I guess. And a paper plate, so that way I have a palette. So I poured both of my blacks, and then I have 2 whites. One of the whites is going to have a little bit of purple, and then the black is going to have a lot more purple, just so that way it actually gets that hint of purple in it. Here I'm just finishing up the lines all the way to the top, so that way I know where to put the paint. This step is not necessary. You don't necessarily need the white. I'm going in with the white because it makes the light purple blend better, but it is an extra step and you don't have to do that if you don't want to. This sword can be made however you want to. This is just a tutorial to help. I'm gonna speed through this again, but what I'm doing here is just putting white purple on the edge between the white and where the black and dark purple are going to go. I'm going in with the black here. I'm just going to speed through this again. I stop before I reach the kanji so that way I don't mess up the kanji and I can switch over to a smaller brush. I apologize in advance. I don't know when my video cut out, but it did. Right now I'm going in with the black purple and I'm just dabbing on the sides so that way we kind of get the Obanai look that we're going for. Alright, so now we're going to take our white purple and cover the kanji. You can also use a white chalk marker, it'd probably be easier. I don't have one, so I'm just using my paintbrush. Be careful when doing this, it can be very difficult and you can mess up, but also feel free to mess up. It's all a part of the process. So here I'm going in with my black and I'm just going to touch up everything I mess up and also go around the kanji so that way I don't hit it when I'm going in with more of the black and the dark purple. Now we're going to do the last step on this side, which is take our white and draw a line from where the first curve starts on the right side and just going all the way down to the kanji. I'm going to speed through this part, but what we did on the front side, we're going to do on the back side. The only difference is we don't have to write kanji on this side. Again, just going in with the white and then going in with the white purple, then the black, and then the black purple, just so that way everything blends well, but you can totally skip the white and the white purple. It is just a minor detail, but if you are a stickler for the details, feel free and go ahead. Apologies, I don't know when it cut out, but what we're doing is just finishing up that last part with the white squiggle that goes in the middle. Now we're just going to push that off to the side. We're now going to be moving on to our hilt. So, Obanai's hilt is a little difficult as it is snakes and flowers and circles, but also you can see through it. So, I don't have a great tutorial on this, but what I did was just I made a circle. After that, I just made the center portion, which would be cut out, and then I made a circle around that, and that would be what's going to stay. And then I did the little circles on each side, and I tried my best at drawing a snake. It is not the greatest, but that is okay, because what matters is that we tried. Please feel free to skip this part if you don't feel like doing it. That is totally understandable. It took me quite a while to get it right. Now here's where the box cutter really comes in handy, is that you can cut out, I know, I'm sorry, it's not in screen and I apologize so much for that. I didn't realize it until looking at the videos afterwards. But what I'm doing here is cutting out the piece, and that is the piece I broke off. So after some handy dandy super glue, we can put the piece back together. You can also use hot glue, has found to work. Tape is a little difficult to use for this part, but it is also doable. I finally finished cutting. However, I did do some damage to it. Luckily, I will be hot gluing it to another piece, so it'll be a little bit more supported. I finished hot gluing, so the pieces are now together. I'm going to speed through this part, but what I did was just cut out the same thing on the backside, so that way you can see through it just like Obanai's hilt is supposed to be. Although I did do some damage to this, so I had to hot glue it to make sure it stayed in place. Now we can finally paint the hilt. What I used was the dark yellow. I'm also going to mix it with a little bit of black so that way it pops up better, and the brown, yellow, and green so that way they can mix to make that lighter yellow. And I'm just going to go in with that light yellow now and make sure to coat twice so that way it gets a nice and even coat. The other pieces are going to be coated with the lighter yellow, and then we're going to go in with our brown and make the accent pieces. I noticed that my brown wasn't dark enough, so I darkened it a little bit more so that way the details could pop. You can't see it in this lighting really, but the detail is there. Just going in with that second coating so that way everything looks nice. Now what we did to the back of the hilt, we're going to do to the front of the hilt. So I'm just going in with that yellow and the brown again. Now we can set that off to the side and bring our sword back so that way we can tape it. I'm going to speed through this part so you don't have to watch me fumble with tape, but make sure to cut the tape into tinier pieces so that way it folds over nicely. So just make sure that you cover the full edge with tape and do the same on the other side. It is finally over, and now we can use the paper cylinder that we made earlier to make the sword structurally sound. So what we're going to do is just put the paper cylinder inside the katana and make sure it reaches almost the edge. It's okay if it doesn't get to the exact top, but make sure it gets close. Now I'm just going to cut out the handle and make sure it fits. I messed up a little bit here and added another cylinder to the sword. It doesn't fit with the handle on, so I will be moving that out, so don't worry about that. Now I'm just putting on the handle. I did break it a little bit, so just be careful, it is fragile. Here I'm taking the hilt top and the hilt bottom and just curling them so that way it's easier to work with and wrap around the sword. So I'm going to glue that piece on first with a hot glue gun. Be careful. it does hurt when you touch hot glue. Now we're just doing the last bit and putting the handle on using that hot glue. And then we can work on our handle. Here I'm adding the extra pieces. I'm only going to add 2 more, so I end up using 3 extra cylinders. I'm sorry I didn't record that part. Now we're moving on to the handle, and we're going to fold it shortwise, unlike how we did it earlier, which was longwise, and then we're going to fold it shortwise again, so that way we have a nice handle. We're also going to cut it a little bit so that way it fits better. Now I'm just pulling it around to see if it fits better, and now that I know that it does, we're going to move on to the pattern. Obanai's handle pattern is in the shape of spirals downward, so I like to match it up. I'm just going to speed through this part though. We are moving on to the last painting part, where Obanai's handle is a purple. So I used a dark red and a pink, and just did an alternating pattern between that color and white. Now that we've done that, we can move on to the taping part, which is just making sure that the handle stays nice. I'm going to speed through this part as well. Now that that's done, I can put the handle on, but the handle was a bit loose, so that's where I added the extra cylinder. Like I said, I used a total of 3 extra cylinders that I did not record. Finally, we're at the last part of the sword, which is just throwing everything together. We're going to take the last cylinder and put it together with the hot glue gun. Then we're going to put the handle on, making sure that all the cylinders get inside the handle. Now we're going to cut off the axis that's there. It can be a little tricky, so do be careful with that. And we're going to put the last piece on. I accidentally zoomed through that. And then we are going to put the bottom of the guard on. And be careful, hot glue can burn. Again, I did burn myself at this part. And for the last part, we're just going to cut off the axis and trim the bottom so that way it makes a nice circle. Now you can do any final touch-ups that you need to with the hot glue gun, and there you have it. You have built Obanai's Katana. Thank you all for joining me. It has been quite the adventure, and I hope you had a great time. Just some quick shots of what the blade looks like from a little bit of a distance. I truly thank you all for joining me, and I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, guys!